Hey, how are you doing today, Annabelle?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I know we don't have a ton of time today, but let's go ahead and look at your Clementi that we've been working on, okay? You're playing the sonatine. How about we just start going in the first section here before the repeat. Before we do that, though, how has practicing been going with it? Do you feel like you're understanding things?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, you can feel free to ask me questions today, too, as we're going through it. Okay? So why don't you play this first part for me, hands together. Very nice, Annabelle. So we've talked about this before, but what is something that you enjoy about this piece? Because you play Clementi very well. We've played a few of them. Maybe just one thing that you enjoy about it?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. That's always important to think about, too, when you're playing pieces, because we're playing pieces to help ourselves improve at the piano, right? But we want to enjoy it while we're doing that. That's why we do music in the first place, right? So it's always important to think to yourself, well, why do I like this piece? Why did I pick it? Because we picked this one together, right? So, you know, why did we choose to pick that one? And what's fun about it? You know, what's challenging about it? Can you tell me something that's challenging about it?
All the scales in it.
The scales, yeah. The 16th notes are pretty difficult. You're doing them very well, and they've improved a lot since the first time I heard you. What I would encourage you to do, and we've also talked about this before, is really focus on your dynamics. Because sometimes it sounds very beautiful, it's legato, it's melody versus accompaniment, you're doing a great job with that. But sometimes I just want to hear a little more dynamics, and I want to hear a little more shape. We've talked about shape, right? They're going up in a phrase and then going back down. So with that in mind, in these first 4 measures here, or actually let's just take the first 2. We have da 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 da. Where would the high point of that phrase be?
Right there.
Right, and how do you know that?
Because it says forte.
It's a sforzando right here, which means, do you know?
Like really loud.
Yeah, like suddenly really loud. But what dynamic marking are we starting the piece in? Piano. So we gotta go piano and then growing a little bit with this crescendo, suddenly loud, and then back down to piano, just in 2 measures. Right?
Yeah.
So can you try that for me? Let's try it again. Why don't you put a little more emphasis into the notes leading up to that sforzando. So you did a great job when you landed on it, but there's a little crescendo here too. You can keep going. We have another one coming up. To there. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so let me grab a pencil here. So, if we look, like we said, we start in piano, we get to forte, we go back down to piano. Then we kind of do what for these 2 measures dynamically?
Stay piano.
Yeah, you stay piano for a little bit. And then we get another crescendo, right? And so these 2 measures are very similar to these 2 as far as the dynamics go. And then we go back down to piano, and this whole section's in piano. So I would love to hear, you know what, let me demonstrate for you. let me go ahead and let's just skip next to you real quick. I'll just do first couple measures here. Okay, so a little bit more strength here, right? And then here I kind of came down to da 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 da, really soft in here. So why don't you try those measures a few more times?
Okay. Wait, so from here?
Yeah, from the beginning, right there. 2, nice. And then 2 there. Beautiful. Very, very nice, Annabelle. I like that. I like that a lot. How does that feel to you?
Better.
Better? Good, good. What do you know about Clementi? Do we know anything about him?
No.
He's actually often, you play him early on in your piano playing, but then he's kind of forgotten the more that you play. And do you know what time period he would have been in? Do you know your musical time periods by chance?
A little, but
Okay, tell me what you know.
I don't know when Clementi was around.
Okay, that's okay. Have you heard of the Baroque era and then the Classical era?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have there's a few periods before the Baroque, but we have the Baroque and we have the Classical, and then we have the Romantic in the 20th century, and we have new music after that. So, where do you think he fell?
Classical?
Yeah, that's a good guess. So that's important to know because when we are studying any type of music, we want to know what the music was like at that time, right? And so if I'm playing a Chopin piece, he was the Romantic period, which is very, very different and different characteristics than the Classical period, which is also very different from Bach and people like that in the Baroque. So take a wild guess. You can be totally wrong. It's not a problem. But can you name one characteristic, one thing that makes this music how it is? Because you guessed classical and that was right, so there had to be something that told you about that. Take a complete wild guess.
I don't really know, like, maybe because of the dynamics.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of dynamics. I'm playing a Beethoven sonata right now. I think I've told you that. And one thing that's characteristic of that is that there's suddenly loud dynamics and then soft. He kind of plays with your ear that way. And Clementi was around that time period. He was actually contemporaries, or was around the same time as Clementi. As Mozart and Beethoven. So, and Haydn and people like that. You've heard of those names, right? So dynamics are a big thing. Another big thing would be what I said earlier, the melody versus the accompaniment. And so what does that mean as far as what do we do with the melody, what do we do with the accompaniment dynamically?
Like, you would make the melody come out more than the accompaniment.
Yeah, you would make the melody sing, we've talked about. It's very lyrical. Because if we play our left hand, it's really the same thing over and over. Right? Okay, so it's just outlining chords. We've written in here our 5 chords, our 1 chords, our 6th chord. And it's just kind of laying the foundation for us. And then we have our singing melody over top. Right? And that's way more interesting. So why do you think that's important for you to know as a pianist? What does that make you do differently if you know that the top line is more important?
Like try to make that come out louder.
Absolutely. You try to make it come out a little bit louder. You make that part much more important. So with that in mind, why don't you play your right hand? And I want you to just sing with the right hand. You can, if the dynamics aren't perfect, that's okay. But I want to know as the listener that you're extremely proud of that right hand. Okay, and that's the part of the piece that we're happy to play. And I'll play the left hand. Okay. It's okay. Go ahead. Yeah, keep going. Okay. Now, any questions so far before we continue? Making sense? Okay. One more thing I want to tell you. When we look at these scales that you told me that are kind of challenging, we notice that they do what compared to the right hand versus the left hand? What happens to them?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, if we look here, let me ask my question a little bit differently. If we look here, we're starting in the right hand, right? And then we don't really have anything in the right hand. So where does the scale figure go?
Down and up.
Yeah. So we have it in the right hand, then we have it in the left hand, then we have it in the right hand. And then this last measure is actually kind of fun because for half of the measure we have it in the left, then the other half we have, right? So we stretch it over, this whole measure's in the right hand, this whole measure's in the left hand, right hand again, left, right really fast. Okay, so he's kind of playing with your ear a little bit. So again, I just want you to play the right hand. I'm not even going to worry about this left hand here. I just want us to play those scale figures. Does that make sense? So you're going to start here, and then I'll come in and play the left, and then when it's your turn again, you come in with the right, and then we'll play left, okay?
Okay. Wait,
Okay. Okay, let's try it one more time. I want you to really play it confidently, okay? Beautiful. Okay, let's skip ahead and maybe try. Let's try that again, but let's continue on until the end of that section. And I want you to really continue to play that right hand very strongly. Okay? Nice and low. Nice and low. Yeah, nice. So, just to wrap up, because we're almost out of time, what would be a few things that you could take away from our time together today? What would be a few things that you learned just about this one section?
To take time on like the scales and stuff.
Sure, we could take some time on our scales and switch in between the right hand and left hand, right? That's actually an excellent way to practice, would be, I know that your mom can play the piano too, and so maybe you could say, hey mom, can you sit with me and I'll play the right hand, you play the left hand, and you can hear where the scale figures are going, right? Hear them going back and forth. Anything that you learned about the classical period?
That Clementi was in the classical period.
And what about a characteristic about your piece? Something new?
Like the scales when it goes to like the right hand to the left hand.
Yeah, very, very good. We're switching around that melody, and we have our melody versus accompaniment, right? Yeah. So you did an excellent job today, Annabelle. I asked you a lot of questions, but you did a really great job. And I will see you next week. Okay?